everything paranormal. Para X. The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
Merry meets and merry part, bright the cheeks and warm the heart. For tread the circle thrice about, to keep unwelcome spirits out. Bide within the law you must, in perfect love and perfect trust. Mind the threefold laws you should, 3 times bad and 3 times good. These 8 words the read fulfill, and ye harm none, do what ye will.
Welcome to Stirring the Cauldron on the Para X Radio Network. And now, here's your host, Marla Brooks.
Merry meet everybody and welcome. Our friend, world-renowned paranormal investigator and ghost storyteller and all kinds of other things, author, Richard Sennett, he's here. And we're going to talk about something that I saw caught my eye on one of his Facebook pages, and I had to get more information. So if you've ever wondered what you looked like in past lives, Richard will be sharing the experiment and talk about his experience with it. And as always, questions and comments are welcome. And if you're listening live and are in the ParaX chat room, that's where they come from. And if you want to join us here, come over to paraxradionetwork.com. All right, Richard, you really piqued my, that too. I just was listening to that and I thought we got to get in here and delve more into that. So thanks for coming in.
Good. I'm glad to talk about it.
Okay, so you wear many hats, right? So I wasn't very surprised when I saw that this experiment about seeing our faces of past lives. But before we get into that, let's talk about past lives in a bit. And let me ask you, have you always believed that we came and go from here and there and back again?
Yes, my mother was a very, very much of a believer in the concept of past lives. And she always said that if you had a past life, you could recall it with your dreams. Or if you have dreams of a certain period of history, or if a certain period fascinated you, like the Victorians or ancient Egypt or Greece or Rome, it meant that at another time you led a life in that particular era. Well, I had several dreams, I know, while I was a kid, and when I told them to my mother, she said, oh, that was because you were in a past life. And she told me her dreams that she had recurrently of being a sailor in old Venice in the Middle Ages and being shot with an arrow by a Turk. So so she had all these little details of clothing and stuff like that. And I started to, when I was probably around 12 or 13, have dreams of the Civil War. Mm-hmm. And I was sleeping once on the couch. Just my mother told me this, and my father too. They were watching TV. I was asleep. And then I stood up from where I was sleeping and looked right at him and said, yes, sir, General Lee, and gave a salute, and then went back to bed. So she thought, oh, it's simple. You were a courier in the Civil War. You were reporting to General Lee.
Wow.
So, even though all my ancestors were Yankees, not Confederates, but it was... So I've had all these different experiences over the years. So I have... I believe that definitely there's something to it. Now, I did go to a regressionist, and there's 2 kinds of regressionists you can go to. The first kind I don't recommend. That is, you go in and see a psychic, they look at you, And then they say, I see in another life you're a pirate or a princess or who knows what. And they tell you about your life. That's very interesting, but it's not as good as the second way, where you go into a hypnotic trance and you are led through it, through stages, and then you end up in the dream, the state where you're actually, it's like being in a movie. You can look around and see all the stuff that's there, and it's in color, brilliant color. It's not like black and white or something. As you go through stages of what it was like. I've had that done 3 times, and I went through 3 different lives, and it was pretty wild stuff, really.
How many lives do you think that we do have? Or is there, people say a few, some people say thousands. I guess how far you go back. What do you think about that?
Well, now you're getting into philosophy, but I believe that it's kind of like this life we're leading is a classroom. Our goal is to better ourselves so we become better people. Most of the time, we fail. We blow it one way or another. And as such, we have to repeat the class. And that's where you come back in another life. And if you are mean and cruel in one life, you might be, the next one you'll be born crippled or have some deficiency. So you have to suffer a little bit more. And you gain knowledge through each life, and eventually you won't have to do it again. You can advance up to the next level of existence. But I think some people have just a few lives, 3 or 4 or 5. I think others have to go through maybe 20 or 30 to kind of learn whatever it is. But now we're getting into the place of philosophy and theology, which I really don't know. I'm not being a theologian. But,
right.
I think that I've had at least 5 or 10 lives, and I've remembered several of them. But I've seen, in my paranormal studies, I've seen so many examples of it. Weirdest one was this little boy who was 5. I think it was actually 4. And he started to tell his parents of a past life where he was a pilot and was shot down in World War II. And so they called me up. So I talked to him and got all the details I could. Just a little kid. And he's giving me all the talk about ailerons and flying and what kind of plane he was flying and all sorts of stuff. And from what I could piece together, he had been killed in the Battle of Midway. And his plane had been shot down by the Japanese. And then about a year later, he forgot the whole thing. It wasn't there anymore. Just like whatever memories he had of it, when you tried to talk to him, he just refused to remember or clammed up about it. So I saw that with my own eyes, and it caused me to really wonder, what is there about this? And there are many, many other examples in the literature, especially in countries where they believe firmly in reincarnation, like India, where it's very common to believe that you've lived another life, and in Buddhism and many other religions of the Far East. So there's a lot to be said for it. But again, do we have all the answers? No, but we're still searching. And that's, I think, a good thing.
Yeah, it is, because people have so many different thoughts. Like you're saying, that we come back to better ourselves each time. People say that they come back to fix karma, what you did. And others believe that they don't have to come back at all. And right. I've heard that, and you just don't know what to think. You can sit here and think, well, if I did something wrong and if I can get up in a higher echelon, okay, I'll come back. But then a lot of people say, oh my God, their life was so bad so far, they don't even want to get near it, the next time. So do you think we have free thought about that?
I think we do have a little bit of a choice in the matter, but I also think that if you led a really good, perfect life, you could come back, and if you suffered or something, maybe you get all the good freebies this time around. Maybe you're here to influence others, so you come back, and it's not for you to better yourself, but to help others become better people, such as your children or your friends or people you know who are suffering and have problems with addiction and stuff like that. Maybe you're there to help them out. And by helping them, you help yourself.
That's a good way to look at it. I didn't think about that. See, I knew you were going to say something brilliant. Okay, something I learned right now. There's a question from the chat room. And she says, I know for a fact that one of my ancestors and one of my husband's ancestors were in the same regiment during the Battle of Yorktown. Since I was told my husband and I have been together over many lives, could this battle be one of those?
Yes, very much. And you probably maybe died together in that battle, like so many did. Wars always are horrible, hideous, terrible things. I've always believed that there is no such thing as war crimes because war itself is a crime. And something to be avoided as much as possible. But so many people go out and perish, so it leaves big scars on society. One of the more haunted places are battlefields, especially on the anniversary of a said battle. Civil War battlefields, almost all of them are haunted. So the more hideous and terrible the scar, the deeper is the psychic wound.
Yeah, it is. And I kind of think wherever there's history, there are ghosts. But I think more so that, this universe has been around. I mean, this Earth has been around so long that there has been death probably every inch of this world. And that doesn't mean that, they're all haunted, but you would think that almost all houses and stuff, you never know, right?
What did Longfellow said? He said, all houses where men have lived and died are haunted houses. And so I think truth to what he observed, because we have so much going on in the world, and it's not everywhere. There are many houses that are not haunted. It's only as if there's a few that are sort of scarred from some horrible event that makes them haunted. The same with battlefields and others, and past lives as well. I think you can be sort of haunted by the negative memories of a terrible experience you suffered in a past life.
Yeah, and also people don't have to be necessarily dead in one or die in one place, because there's always like spirits that just stop in for a minute and go away. It's like coming through, right? I mean, people that don't have anything, they're just on their having fun, going on vacation or whatever. And that always interested me, because how do they probably, I keep saying there's a neon sign above everyone's our houses that the dead can tell who can pick up on it and would probably see them or know that they were there, as opposed to, what's it fun to go down to a house and, you're there, but nobody's paying attention to you. So you think
remember, ghosts see through walls and everything. They don't live in our universe. And we have a psychic gift. They believe, this is 19th century belief, is that there's a third eye in your brain, and it glows red, and the ghosts can see that and know that you can communicate with them and will come to you because they see that light in your head that tells them that you are psychic. And that's why some are haunted, some are not. Also, it's believed, again, this is 19th century spiritualism, that people who die who are addicts and who were alcoholics and kind of addicted to one thing or another, be it gambling or sex or alcohol, whatever it is, they can come back to the earth and try to vicariously enjoy it from living people and encourage them to drink more or do more so that they can enjoy vicariously the activities that once dominated their lives when they walked the earth. Anyway, that's theory.
No, and I was thinking about it as you said that because I'm thinking about people that get attachments. Why do they get attachments? Why do they pick them up from, sometimes on investigations or whatever? Are they open to it, or is the spirit just knows how to get to them? Or, why do we get hitchhikers sometimes?
Well, I think it has to do with your personality. You have to invite anything that attaches itself to you. You invite it through your own subconscious or conscious will. If you enjoy drinking, you drink too much, you're inviting an alcoholic spirit into your life. And they could be a good spirit in the sense that they're just there for a good time, or they could be something quite negative. So it's all, again, a matter of perspective. And again, we're getting into the domain of theology. But a lot of places like saloons and bars are haunted. Mm-hmm. Also, former brothels where prostitution was once plied, even if it hasn't been done for many years, many of them are haunted as well. So there's, wherever something like this goes on, there is kind of like leftovers, traces that seem to permeate the atmosphere, the vibration, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. There's, again, a lot we don't know, but there's so many different theories that have been put forth. Some of them, though, I do seem to think might be legitimate. There might be something to them.
Mm-hmm. And when you're talking about that, I did that one time. I got my own attachment because I opened my big mouth because we were on an investigation and I wasn't picking up any EVPs. Mm-hmm. And I was the whole time, I was thinking, okay, let me hear it, but nothing. So as we're leaving the place, it was on Hollywood Boulevard in a bank building that was pretty haunted. I said, just say something. I want to hear you. I just give me one EVP, but I didn't get it. But when I got home, I put the recorder on my desk and it started talking and repeating what I said on the voice thing. And I thought, oh, okay. That's, it just happened. It's an electronic thing. It's technical. And then, and as days gone by, my animals were getting freaked out. My bird I couldn't turn out the light at night. The cats and the dogs, had their hackles up. And this thing stuck around for a very long time. But it was my fault that I just said, oh, just make sure you say something or whatever. Well, he didn't make something. He showed up instead. So, yeah, you have to be really careful.
Did you protect yourself?
I did.
Did you protect yourself?
I did, but I was just... Huh?
You still got it even with protection?
Yeah, I think I was just kind of, glib when I was saying, oh, just, say something here. And, maybe that kind of broke down the thing that I was protecting and just making kind of a joke or something. You never know.
What did you do to get rid of it? Did it just fade out of its own accord?
Well, Kenny Kingston, right?
Yes, very much.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I called Kenny because I said there's somebody here. And he says, well, do the salt thing. And I said, salt. He says, yeah, you put salt in your hand and you lick it. And ghosts don't like that. And he said it's like if somebody invites you to dinner and they know that you don't like liver and you serve liver, they'll go away. So I just was kind of thinking about the salt thing, and he said, try that. It should probably work. And I was sitting at my desk, and there was a window, and I saw this shape. This man's arm in the window, and there's no way anybody could have gotten in there. And I thought, and then so I said, I'm getting the salt because he's out. He's on the outside right now, and I did the salt, all the doorways and the windows really, really quick, and he didn't come back. So, but it was my fault. You don't have to be really seriously, on when you're doing it, but you have to know what you're doing and not doing something that's stupid, like, okay, I just want to just tell me one thing, blah. So, yeah.
Well, I've made similar mistakes, so I'm not going to get down on you for doing that.
Thank you.
But the salt thing is very useful, and it's ancient Roman. The Romans used that to get rid of the Marias, their evil spirits. And so that's where that comes from. But it does work. I've seen it used effectively in places. Others use sage and a variety of different things. Symbols can be helpful. But again, you have to believe in the symbol. So if you're Jewish, you can put up all the crosses in the world. It won't work. But if you're a Catholic and believe in such things, a statue of St. Michael or a picture can be very effective to get rid of unwanted leftovers, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy how things work like that. You just have to know what you're doing, and a lot of people go out there not knowing or not caring, but just wanting to have some fun, and that's when they get in trouble, I think.
So many of these people are ghost hunters and TV people. I cringe when I see some of the things they do. And I have a feeling that if they see a real ghost, they're going to really poop their pants because real evil, as you know, does exist. And there are bad things out there. Most of the time, not. Mm-hmm. You can get by for a long time without encountering evil. But it does exist. And when you have something like that happen, it's really hard it's just terrifying. I don't know what else to say about it. And you gotta really know what you're doing. And I would never invite or even want to do anything with anything evil or negative or stuff like that. Usually where I get stuff like that, I say, had enough. I'm going home. Sorry. Yeah,
that works.
But you've got to be very careful because there's not all ghosts are Casper the Friendly Ghost.
No, they're not. And, I think one of the things that helped me get that one out was he was messing with the kids, not the animals. The bird was crazy every time he'd start making noise and flying around, and dogs and whatever. And I was really mad. So I think I really had enough chutzpah, if you want to call it, to just be real strong. And you have to be really strong. But I know there are people that, like somebody that I know has something that comes into the house or is in the house, but she wasn't. There's been so much stuff in her life that she's not strong enough to get rid of it. So what do you do about that?
You bring in an expert, just kind of like plumbing. If your sink is backed up and you can't get it to work, and you try your hardest, it's time to bring in an expert. The same is true with paranormal things. That's when you need to contact a psychic or a psychic researcher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because and that's really important in witchcraft and in everything like that. You have to be on your toes. You have to be healthy. You have to be not, cluttered up in your head. When you do this stuff, you have to be in good shape, mentally and physically.
You've got to be on top of it. In fact, I tell people, never, ever do any of the stuff, paranormal stuff, if you're stoned or drunk or anyway, even if you feel sick, don't do ghost hunting unless you're all together. Your game is 100%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's words to grow by, or listen to at least. Now, we were talking about thinking about we might know or have some inkling of who we were in past lives. And there's some people in the chat room, and I want them, if you know and you think you know where you were and who you were, put it in the chat room and let's talk about it a little bit before the break. Because I know I have like 3 or 4 things that I think I'm at, and you know yours. So let's hear from the chat room because it's always a good thing. And in the meantime, so you said how many did you have that you think you have past lives?
I believe I've had 5, at least, maybe 8.
Mm-hmm. And they're all different, aren't they? You know, I mean, completely different. Yeah.
It's really honestly different, and they all have a different style to them. Now, the 3 I know about, I went through a regressionist with. The first one was in old Scotland. Long ago. I was a sheep herder. Wasn't anything great. And the second time, I was a farmer in Utah in the latter part of the 19th century. And I fell down, and the cultivator ran over me and cut me into pieces. And the strangest one was I was a planter, wealthy planter in Panama. And it was all the colors, I can still remember them, of the flowers. And I was I had slaves rowing me in a boat. I had a little boat with an awning above me, and the slaves would row me down the river to where the community was, and they had brought in all these English prisoners. But I remember speaking to them, but in my dream, I could just speak Spanish. And so I couldn't understand the prisoners who were speaking English. So that was the strangest thing I recall. I was wearing all this very fine, very hot clothing of a nobleman in the 18th century. And it was a strange dream, but very, very colorful. I had a wife and children, a life going on. I was both weak in some areas and good in others, like all human beings. So, but I actually had that experience there. And I've had others that I've believed that I've encountered over the years. Yeah, and some people say, okay, I want to know. Some people don't want to know. And some people, here's a question. Now, your wife is a medium, right? Yes.
Okay. So I was thinking, I mean, this is a long shot, but have any of the ghosts who've been in contact with her have had any stories about their past lives? I think that would be really interesting to find out.
No, I've never heard her mention that about their past lives. They're just happy to talk about the one they recently left. Most ghosts you'll find are very monomaniacs in the sense they're single-minded. They're always focused on one thing. In fact, they're rather quite boring, actually. If you would, the kind of people at a party that you want to get away from because they just want to talk about one thing over and over and over again. That's what many ghosts are like. But I've never had a mention of ghosts with past lives. Now, it could be that the emotional elements that make up a ghost, because ghosts are nothing more than big balls of energy, emotional energy. It's almost like they're not a complete person. They're a part of a person, a trace, if you will, or a fragment of a reality, not their whole person, but just this little leftover obsessions that got somehow stuck or left behind. So it's kind of interesting stuff all the way along.
It is. And I think a couple of people didn't quite grasp what you were talking about, how you learned all your lives. So she said, How does he know he had all these lives?
Okay, well, first I went to a lady who was an ex-nun who became interested in the paranormal and left the convent and studied that. And she became a past life regressionist. And she did it where she put you into a hypnotic trance. So you remember everything. You see it with in your mind's eye. And it's very vivid. And that's the three I told you about, being a farmer in Utah and being, a Scotch sheep herder and a landowner in Panama, of all places, in the 18th century. So those lives I did through regression therapy. Now the others are more hinted at, like dreams and things I've had in that case. Now there is an interesting story, by the way. I should pass that on to you. It is said that some animals, dogs and cats especially, have the ability to see your past life. And the story, I don't know how true it is, but they say if you see a cat looking at you really intensely, it's because they can see your past life and they can find out what you were at another time. Now, I don't know if that's true. I haven't asked my cat. At least he hasn't told me anything yet. But I did something that my mother advised. She was a Rosicrucian and followed that particular belief system. And one of them was an acceptance of past lives. And she said that you could see the face you had in another life in an experiment. Now, she told me about the lives she had, and it was only when I was a little older that I decided to try it out for myself. Now, to do the experiment, you need 2 candles, a large room, a darkened room, and a mirror. That's all you need. It's a form of scrying, kind of like using a crystal ball. So,
all right.
What you do?
Let me. We got to take a quick break, and so hold that thought. And everybody sit tight, and you might want to have a pencil and paper handy to take down notes of how he's going to tell you what to do. All right, we'll be back in about 2 minutes.
There's more Stirring the Cauldron with Marla Brooks right after these important messages.
Kick off the Halloween season on September the 28th at the very haunted Merchant and Drover's Tavern Museum in Rahway, New Jersey, with Bruce Tango and Chris DeCesare. Chris will be talking about his true, terrifying experiences while attending college back in 1985, and will be showing his award-winning film, Please Talk With Me. I'm sure you will enjoy it. Bruce will be telling some of his true ghost stories in the way that only Bruce can. He has a way of telling a story that will have you shaking in your boots one minute and then having you laugh your butts off the next.
Hi everyone, this is Chris DeCesare. I want to invite you and yours to join me and my good friend Bruce Tango on this night of all things ghostly and things that go bump in the night. In addition to my film and Bruce's storytelling, there will also be an EVP session with playback right away to see if we caught anything. Let's see what the Merchant and Drover's resident ghosts have to say. I sincerely hope that you and yours can join us for an evening of chills and thrills.
For all of the evening's details and ticket information, go to brucetango.com ASAP. This is going to be one scary night.
Hi, it's Tori DeVito. In every family, small conversations can make a big impact. Like when my dad shared his experiences as an alcoholic.
Your honesty about that part of your life gave me a sense of integrity that I wanted to uphold in my own life.
I wanted you to know, from someone who's been in recovery more than 30 years now, that hard work is what creates success, not alcohol or other drugs. I said it a lot, and I'm glad you took it to heart.
Talk, they hear you. For more information, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Welcome back to Stirring the Cauldron. Once again, here's your host, Marla Brooks.
Our guest tonight is Richard Sennett, and we've been talking about past lives and reincarnation, and it's time for him to really explained how he found out about the experiment to begin with, and who he saw in the mirror over the millennium, and how we can do it ourselves. And is there any kind of disclaimer attached about doing the experiment? Sometimes people worry.
Yeah. No, you don't have anything to worry about. Now, those detractors or skeptics who say it's not true, say it's all just your active imagination and eye strain. Well, maybe it is. I can't really say one way or the other. But it all goes on what you believe. Yeah, but I would advise everyone to try it. Now, if they get to a position where they feel frightened or if they feel there's something they don't want to do, stop the experiment at once. Of course, I would say that about all paranormal experiments. If you are uneasy about events that are happening in an experiment, please stop. Just don't do it anymore. And that's, I think, the best advice. Now, to do it, you must keep a kind of an open mind. You need a darkened room, a mirror, and 2 candles. They can be white, but I am told by some that you should never use black or red candles. And I asked this fellow, why not red? And he said, they're only good for summoning the devil. Okay, I don't think candles. So white candles, and you put them side by side, about 18 inches apart, and you turn off all the lights, get a good comfortable chair, and look at yourself in the mirror in the candlelight. And if you try to keep your mind blank and just look at your face, and it may take a while. I know I was about 17 at the time. I was doing this experiment that my mother had told me how to do, and I was by myself, and there was no one there to influence me, so I was just watching my image. Now, of course, the dark, flickering light, your eyes do become strained, and I guess it was about 10 or 15 minutes before I noticed anything. But after a short time, I noticed my face began to change. I started to get wrinkles in my face, which I didn't have at the time. I was a teenager. And then a beard appeared, a gray beard appeared on my face. And as I watched, I noticed my hair grew longer, and on top of my head was a little hat, a Kewpie, a kind of uniform hat worn in the Confederate Army. And it had on it a kind of beat-up black bill. And I saw this, and then after a short time, it all vanished. And I was replaced by another face. This one had no beard. In fact, my eyes were slanted, and my face became longer, as well as the nose, too. And this time I had a hat all right, but it was a little pillbox hat. And I could see that I was an Asian person, Chinese or something like that. And I noticed kind of a little tight collar around my neck. And the hair was very short. I couldn't really see very much of it. But it looked at me, and then it slowly faded out. And then after a short time, a new face appeared. And it too had a long nose that had very, very long hair. And I could see in a short time that it wasn't the face of a man, but that of a woman. Had very long blonde hair and had full lips, and she was looking at me. I couldn't see her shoulders; they were bare, but that kind of scared me, I have to admit. I didn't know if I could handle transgender past life, and so I stopped the experiment at this point. But I've had others try the experiment in classes I've taught, and it's remarkable that people have actually done it and gotten similar results of different faces, all different races, sexes, what have you. In fact, as I experiment, I even brought in the candles, and we had someone try it, and then we, the class, watched. And many of the people in the class saw the face change. and saw the man saw him as an elderly fellow. Others saw it as well. So it's a fascinating experiment. What I would also do is when you're done with the experiment, write down everything that you saw. And if you have any artistic ability, draw it. Make a sketch of what you were seeing. Even little accoutrements like the hat or that the figure was wearing where I saw it, whatever little pieces of jewelry or anything else that you happen to see, mark it down. And this might be helpful in figuring when and where it was. Now, it helped me to realize I may have been a Confederate volunteer in the Civil War who perished in that great war, much as I had dreamed. Now, again, I've always been fascinated by the American Civil War and certain particular battles that were fought in that war. It could be that I lost my life in one of those great conflicts, and it left some sort of scar upon me. Now, my mother also said, if you have any blemishes on your body, like a birthmark or something, that maybe is a sign of where you were hit by a bullet or arrow or by the thing that killed you. So if you have any marks, that could be also indicative of a past life experience.
I've heard that too. And, and birthmarks also, and that doesn't have to be like a scar, but, it's just something that you're born with and live with and can't figure out where it came from, but there it is, right?
Yeah, and that's what you do is it might be there as a hint to say, your first time around, and maybe this will give you some ideas about a past life experience. Anyway, that's the theory behind it. Of course, it could also be just a birthmark. It's just a birthmark. That's it. Who knows? But I would advise everyone to, if they can, try the experiment. Go out, get in your bathroom or in your bedroom, set up a couple of candles and set aside a half hour or so, and where you can be relaxed and not interfered with in any way, and try the experiment and record what you see. Now, maybe you'll see nothing. Maybe you didn't have any past lives. Or maybe you'll see a plethora of different faces. And maybe if you do, be ready for the unexpected. It could very well be that I could have seen more things had I not become panicky when I saw the face of a woman looking at me. It's kind of hard for a 16-year-old to imagine himself being a woman at that time, I remember. But do it. Keep it up and see. Maybe you'll get a lot of different experiences. Now, also my mother told me that after you do the experiments, many times you'll have dreams of one of those lives that was most significant to you. Mm-hmm. So you could very well have a dream, and if you do, best to get up and write down what you can remember, because it'll vanish away within minutes of you waking up, and whatever experiences you had will be forgotten. So if you want to try this, by all means, I recommend it. And again, if you get scared or if you get disquiet about it, if you feel bad about it, or just stop it and forget all about it. That's the best thing I can have happen. Now, when I've gotten regress through hypnosis, the only negative thing I've ever had is sometimes after the experience I've gotten a violent headache. But that was the only negative I ever got from any of these experiences. But it's fascinating, and it may reveal things about yourself. Mm-hmm. Why do you fear certain things? Why do you are attracted to certain things? Why you want to go in a particular direction? You always had desire to visit the South or Italy or Rome or wherever happens to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's And some people are thinking, oh boy, it's like Mary Worth. What's that thing that you call 3 times to the mirror and some spook comes out? Is that? It's not that.
Yeah.
That the game that people used to play, right?
Yeah, that's also another interesting sort of phenomenon. A lot of people have tried it and they've gotten scared, and they have actually reported seeing things. There was a real Bloody Mary. She was a queen of England. She was a Roman Catholic and thought everyone ought to be a Roman Catholic. And if you didn't want to be, she'd have you burned at the stake and killed. So she's a pretty bloody lady, and she left kind of a psychic scar on England. And so maybe that's where the origin of that legend is. But no, do not invite any negative like that. Keep your mind blank. That's what it's all about. The scrying is all about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just it's serious business. Sometimes it can be fun, but it's nothing to laugh about or leave your guard down in any any paranormal thing.
Yeah, you have to take it, because if you go at it with the wrong attitude, you'll get negative stuff. It will come back like a boomerang and hit you in the butt. So be very, very cautious about it. Don't be flippant, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned the hard way too.
We learn by mistakes, right? Our mistakes are...
Yep. How we grow.
They're lessons. Hard lessons sometimes. Very hard lessons. There's another question from the chat room. She said, do you think the reason that I love the music of Beethoven, since I was no older than 7 or 8, does that mean I might have lived during that time period? Because she heard it often.
Yeah. You may well have been a musician. You're the third chair violinist in an orchestra that played Beethoven. Maybe you even knew Beethoven in another life. Whatever it was, it left a lasting impact on you, and that has bled through into this lifetime.
Mm-hmm. What do you say to people when they say, well, I was Cleopatra once, or, Napoleon? I mean, you hear that so often, and people really, there's a chance maybe 1 out of a trillion is that person. But I guess people like to say that they're really famous, even maybe that they're not famous now, but they were famous then or something. But every time I see somebody say, oh, no, I was Cleopatra, and I'm thinking, okay, sure, you were.
Yeah, I am like that. Very skeptical. There would be very few people, nobility. Most people, like today, we are not Elon Musk or anything else. We are just like working slobs trying to get by in the world. That's how things have always been. There's always been whole groups. Now, it could very well be that they attracted a spirit who wanted to be Cleopatra, who wanted to be King Charles I, or who knows who. So it could very well be that the spirit likes to pass themselves off as. I found a lot of people who do Ouija boards and stuff like that actually get in touch with famous spirits who, when questioned, know nothing whatsoever about the person they were supposed to have been. So I believe a lot of times these people will lie to you. They will tell you what they think you want to hear. And I think that might be what's happening with the people who believe they were a famous person in the past. So someone said, oh, you were Napoleon, or you were Washington, or who knows who. But no, whenever I get someone who says they were, a famous personality, I start to question whether or not that's true. Now, they have been a dancing girl. There were lots of them in historical times, especially in Egypt and other places. Were they probably a hooker in the Old West? Probably. But they were very common. But most of the time, I think people just are generally regular people, not nobility or wise people, stuff like that. Anyway, that's my theory.
And you just hit on one of my things, past lives that I think of it, but mine's just a little bit higher than that. But I really, for some reason, told me that I was in the West, the Old West, and I was a madam, in a bordel, or whatever you want to call it there. A whorehouse. And you know that in your book about that. But yeah, somebody just said that, and it's just like, yeah, well, you never know. It might have been fun, right? I don't know.
Well, actually, the madams were perhaps the best off women in the Old West. They were the freest of all spirits. I mean,
yes.
They could own property. They could do things that regular women, normal women, were forbidden to do.
Mm-hmm.
And many of what happened is a woman would be a successful prostitute, and then as they saved and accumulated their money, they would, find backers and open their own place and
mm-hmm.
rise up until they had a stable of girls that worked for them. So that's pretty normal. And some of them got to be quite rich, actually,
mm-hmm.
and own and fine houses and everything. So they became essentially business women of their day, successful ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's funny. People don't know about Knott's Berry Farm, but when they had a long time ago, when they had the Old West Street or whatever they called it, I would love it. I mean, out of that whole park, I was standing there and looking at stuff, and and it's one of those things that you just keep going on and on. I have one more quick question, because we're talking about going hypnosis, to get the finding about your life. But couldn't guided meditation also help? Because it's kind of guided meditation is sort of like a little bit of a hypnosis.
Yes, very much.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, very much.
Yeah, because anybody that's done a guided meditation knows, you're somewhere else, and you're seeing it all around. And you were explaining, how in the hypnosis you saw everything and everything. So it just came to my mind about guided meditation. And so that's good. All right. We're kind of getting close to leaving, but tell us what you're doing these days. What are you up to?
Well, I am writing a new book. I'm always writing a new book. I'll be giving a lot of different tours of Ventura and the Ojai area coming up in October. And I'm just working on my newest book, which is on the pseudosciences. So I'm right now working on cryptozoology and cryptobiology, cryptobotany, as well as astroarchaeology and phrenology, all these different things that are considered not legitimate sciences. Shockingly, this is really shocking, hypnosis is considered a pseudoscience. They don't believe it exists. There are scientists who just brand it all as a bunch of hogwash and point to mesmerism and stuff like that, which is the birthplace of hypnosis. And they don't accept it. In fact, there was a one guy did an experiment where a guy had to have his leg amputated. It was crushed accident, and so he put him under hypnosis to stop the pain. Amputated his leg in front of all these doctors, and then said, "Here, I prove that hypnosis works." And the doctor said, "No, you haven't. All you've done is proven that your patient is a very good actor and he pretends not to feel the pain."
Oh, wow.
He ought to get an Oscar if he's acting. But no, so hypnosis is considered a pseudoscience. So that's what I'm working on right now. My newest book is called Haunted Landmarks of California, and I detail about 35 different sites in California that are rumored haunted, and at each one I explain different techniques you can use to try to communicate with whatever spirits are there. And these range from dowsing rods to pendulums to different electronic tools and apps you can put on your cell phone. And, of course, the stories and histories of the various haunted locations. So that's my newest book. It's on Amazon.com. I think you might like it. I'm kind of proud of it.
I think you're going to have to come back and talk about it. And in the meantime, I'm going to go visit Amazon and get it, because that sounds really interesting. It's not just it's not like a cookie cutter book about things. You added things.
Yeah, it has all kinds of different places. I tried to pick things which are a little bit not in the normal books on haunted locations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Well, I look forward to that, and I'm glad you said that, because I'm running out of good material to read anyway. So I like your books, and yeah, we'll talk. We'll get it done. And also, where can people find you? You know, if they're looking or about your tours or your websites and all that good stuff.
Well, go on to Facebook and go to Richard Sennett Ghost Hunter. Can't go wrong with that. And you can find me right there. And if people have a question, they can always email me at hainthunter@AOL.com. HAINTHUNTER, one word, hunter.com. hainthunter@AOL.com. And I get questions from all over the world. I just answered a question from a guy in Oslo, Norway, and he wanted to know about a particular ghost in his house. So people come and ask me questions all the time.
They know the right person to go to. That's true. All right. Well, thanks for popping in tonight. This is interesting, and I'm not sure I'm going to do the mayor thing, but I'll try. You know, I mean, we were joking in the chat room beforehand. I said I had enough trouble looking in the mirror now. You know, what I'm going to see when I get there. But, yeah, everybody do it. And if anybody does it and it works and everything, let us know. I'll send it to Richard, and you know, we may talk about it on the show or something down the line.
Good.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you again for listening in. And Richard, again, thank you. And until next time, everybody, blessed be, and merry meet again. Good night.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Stirring the Cauldron with Marla Brooks. Please join us again next week at the same time for another great guest and more cauldron stirring. Any rebroadcast or other use of this program without explicit permission is strictly prohibited. Copyright 2024. The Mysterioso March by Kevin MacLeod is licensed through Incompetech.com.